Joining me now to weigh in, former congressman and candidate for governor Lee Zeldin. So what do you make of the indictment of Donald Trump?
I'm one of the people who believe that this is a political prosecution. When's the last time that a local prosecutor in New York has charged a federal campaign finance violation? I don't know if that's ever happened.
I actually don't remember that.
I don't know if that's ever happened. Alvin Bragg, before he took
And how does he even make that case if it's a federal violation?
It's really difficult. It's a leap. It is a convoluted, complex, untested angle. The problem is that one of the charges, and we're commenting based off of what our understanding is of what the indictment is. Well, once we get a chance to read it, we'll know more to be able to comment on it. But commenting off what we all believe and what's been reported, the charge with regards to the payment is a 2-year statute of limitations. So now you have to get creative to figure out how to stretch out that statute of limitations to be able to cover an indictment right now. And the idea that you're going to, as a county district attorney in New York, go after a federal campaign finance violation that the FEC didn't go after, the Department of Justice didn't go after, it reeks of being a political prosecution, especially when you add to it the dynamic that Alvin Bragg, before he even took the oath, said he was going after Donald Trump. He didn't know yet.
Yeah, but when he took office, he disbanded the Trump grand jury.
It would be fascinating to know more information as to what happened behind the scenes, because, as you point out, not only did the FEC pass and the Department of Justice pass and his predecessor pass, but even he passed. And then all of a sudden, something changes where he decides, you know what, I'm going to go after it anyway. And this is so uncharted, not just the fact that it's a former president who's been indicted, but the fact that you have a federal campaign finance violation right at the center of trying to connect all these different dots many years later. So you're also going to be making some statute of limitations arguments of how you believe that it's been told. But as we were just discussing, I don't even know if this has ever been charged by any county district attorney anywhere in New York.
So, but you have to think that somebody who's a prosecutor, who has a history of being a prosecutor, he was in the state attorney general's office before he became district attorney, wouldn't bring a case he didn't think he had a chance of making. I mean, it would be unusual for that to happen, wouldn't you say?
This is highly unusual. And there's a reason why everyone else had passed on this case before him, including the people who actually have jurisdiction over federal campaign finance violations, unquestionably, all the different federal agencies. He made a pledge that he was going to go after Donald Trump. He didn't even know what the facts were or the charges were going to be, and he was going to personally do it. So Michael Cohen just did a TV interview where he says that he met with Alvin Bragg 10 times on this case. Alvin Bragg, not Alvin Bragg's prosecutors. That number is a lot more than 10. But he met Alvin Bragg directly 10 times. Now, what's interesting is that when people say, well, he wasn't indicted by Alvin Bragg, he was indicted by a grand jury, we have to understand the reality is that inside of that grand jury room, not only is the burden of proof a lot less, but there's no defense. There's no cross-examination of witnesses. And when you get to a trial, the day in court is provided. You're innocent until proven guilty. Nancy Pelosi, by the way, tweeted out that Donald Trump has a right to prove his innocence at trial. That's not how our criminal justice system works. When you get to the trial and the defense gets to put their case on with the higher burden, I mean, it's possible that Alvin Bragg doesn't even get a conviction. But the people who are out there saying, well, he was indicted by the grand jury, as if like this is a conviction and the defense is represented. I'll give you one specific example. There's a recorded conversation between Michael Cohen and Donald Trump about a payment. And there's only one recording as far as we know. And in that recording, Donald Trump says, cash? And Michael Cohen's response was no. Michael Cohen had this design of this whole other scheme of how to make the payment. Donald Trump in the recording is saying cash. So now when you have Michael Cohen on stage and he's being cross-examined about this, and you get asked, is it true that you are a convicted felon for lying, for there's a credibility issue. So is Michael Cohen the star witness, or are there other star witnesses? Are there any other crimes that are going to be charged once the indictment is unsealed? We'll see. But as of now, with what we know, this is a very weak, convoluted case by a prosecutor who isn't a consistent law and order prosecutor that so many other people had passed up. I think that, by the way, as far as a Republican primary goes, it probably will make Donald Trump even stronger. And depending on how this process plays out, it could even end up making Donald Trump stronger for a general election, because we're starting to see some people comment. Peter Meyer, former congressman, a Republican, voted to impeach Donald Trump and then loses his reelection. He and many others are putting out statements talking about how this is a political prosecution and it's wrong. You can ask how people who are far left, far right, love Trump, hate Trump, how they all feel. But what's most telling is what the people in the middle, the center of New York, the center of America think. And I think that so far, their impression is, and the early polling is showing, that they believe that's a political prosecution.
So does Donald Trump, you're a lawyer, so would you advise Donald Trump to take the witness stand?
I would need to be more heavily involved in the facts, the discovery. I want to read the sealed indictment. I would want to see what is all of the supporting evidence and the depositions that had taken place, and then provide a legal opinion after that.
So I guess you talk about the fact that the effect it's going to have on the presidential campaign, but obviously the short-term effect is A, it's helping Mr. Trump to raise money, and B, it's helped him in the polls. He shot up in the polls, leaving Ron DeSantis far behind. But the question is, this is the short term. What's the long term of having a president, somebody run for president who's been indicted? What's the long-term effect? Do we know this? Is it uncharted territory?
We don't know.
But what's your gut?
Well, my gut is that this is a political prosecution, that the charges won't pass a smell test either, but we have to read the indictment. That when able to provide a defense, you'll realize that there are some holes in the case. We already know about some. And for the American public, what we do know is that they care a lot about the direction of our country. They care about rising crime. They want a strong economy. They want good quality education in our schools. And there was something about Donald Trump when he first ran in 2016, like he was saying, drain the swamp. You know, he was running against the system, the status quo. He was running against Hillary Clinton, who in many respects was viewed as part of the establishment. And there are people like this on both sides of the aisle, but it was an anti-establishment campaign. When running in a general election about how we need to shake things up, and this is what is wrong with the system, you are more of an outsider when the system itself is attacking you, and the independent-minded person believes, yes, you're right, you are being unfairly targeted in a political prosecution. I think it helps solidify an outsider status potentially as this plays out too.
How could he be an outsider when he's already been president?
Well, when the system itself is going after you like this, it presents an opportunity to be solidified naturally as an outsider.
But what happens when the Democrats come back and they say, whoever the Democratic nominee is, you've been indicted, and try to impugn your credibility and your character?
Biggest test is going to be whether or not independent-minded Americans feel like it was a fair process. It was equal scales of justice. Were you prosecuting him because he was running for president? Were you prosecuting him because he's Donald Trump? It's going to be very important in going forward to make sure that you're treating the person who's accused of a crime fairly. And if you are the Democratic Party and you're saying you can't support Donald Trump because, and you're providing your opinion, he is under indictment, and that person who is on the receiving end of your lecture says, yeah, but that was an unfair indictment, that was not right, if that could happen to him, it could happen to anyone. And then they might even have their own personal experiences that they're relating to, where they feel like the system isn't representing them it's possible that it could end up backfiring to try to claim that because he was targeted with this indictment that you can't support him.
So what do the other Republicans who want to be president do? Do they stay quiet? I mean, Ron DeSantis is going to be campaigning in Long Island to look for money, but do they stay quiet? Do they go after him? Do they say it's a bad prosecution? I mean, obviously they don't want to alienate the Trump supporters, but do they just say, okay, it's not my year? What happens?
A bunch of them have been weighing in, and they're weighing in against the indictment. They are stating that they believe it's a political prosecution. And what's interesting here is that sometimes the other side, there's always other sides of these arguments. The other side would say, well, these are talking points that are being handed down by this, mysterious person or entity. What you can't take for granted is that Republicans, many of them, actually believe that it's a political prosecution. It doesn't require anyone to pass down, these are our official talking points, it is a political prosecution. So I think for these Republican candidates who are weighing in, saying that they believe it's a political prosecution, I believe them. And I also believe that many of their supporters feel that same way too. And one of the best tests is looking at how anti-Trump Republicans, and I used the Peter Meyer example from Michigan, but there are many others like him, people who do not like Donald Trump. They want anyone but Trump. When you see them weighing in against the indictment, you know that you actually have a bigger problem.
So we have about 30 seconds left. I just wondered, do you expect any candidates to drop out because of this?
I think that we'd have to see how the polling would shape up in the coming weeks. If Donald Trump continues to rise in the polls and his margin becomes wider, then there might be less of a competitive primary and more of people rallying behind him.
Okay, well, we're going to have to leave it there for right now, and we'll be right back.